We've got a Craftsman snowblower this morning that's not wanting to start. Customer brought it in, says it's been sitting for a couple years. So we're gonna check this thing out and figure out what exactly is going on. First thing you wanna do is go ahead and check the oil. You wanna make sure that the oil level is good and that there's not any gas mixed in with it. Very common on these, they'll get fuel in the crankcase, and if you run them like that, it's obviously gonna ruin your engine. So this one's good. Got a good level there. I'm gonna show you. And these are the same engines that are on a lot of different things. It's an MTD branded engine, 179 to I think 208 cc is what they rate them for. Same as the Troy Bilts. This one is, that one's a MTD. They're made by Powermore. As you can see, this MTD one on the right is actually branded Powermore, but MTD brands them as their own. This is the Storm 2410. But this one, when I went to check it, you can always smell it and see if it smells like fuel, but sometimes the stale fuel won't smell real strong. So, if you look at this one, when you're looking at it in the light, you can see it's shiny all the way up that dipstick. So you can see on just the tip, you can see where it looks like oil, and the rest of it looks like it's just gas mixed in. And that's because it is. It smells, you can see that shine all the way up where you can tell liquid's on there, but it's kind of hard to tell, so pay close attention to that. That way you're not running your unit with fuel inside the crankcase, which will ruin it real quick. So we've already tested this one. We're gonna go ahead and, or I'm sorry, we've already looked at it. We're gonna go ahead and test this. Prime it a few times. We're getting nothing from it. You can always test your spark at the spark plug by either removing it. Takes a 13/16 or a 21 millimeter and all you have to do is pull the wire off and go ahead and remove the plug to check it. We've got a clip-on one, so we're going to test that. Make sure we're getting good spark since it's not starting. So that's showing good spark for us, so we know that's out of the equation. Now if we look in here at the back side, there is a spot right here at the, so basically right at the tip there, right at that little notch out of that plastic that comes to the left, that's kind of pointing at the screwdriver, or screwdriver flashlight. Directly under that is where you want to spray some carb cleaner or starting fluid or anything like that. And that actually goes down into the intake of the unit, and it'll give it a little bit of gas. So that kind of doesn't seem like it's still starting it. So it did take off really quick. That is a common issue sometimes on these, and it happens when the throttle plate down in there gets stuck. So it'll get all gummed up, I'll show you, but it's stuck so where the governor can't move back and forth. So that means this carburetor's all gummed up. We did look down in the fuel tank, check and see what was in there, and it didn't look too bad. It doesn't look exactly fresh, doesn't smell exactly fresh, but there's not a ton of stuff in the tank. But we will have to clean all that out and get it ready also. So really, to get this thing fixed up, all you need is a can of carb cleaner. We use an ultrasonic cleaner to clean it, but need a few other tools like the needle nose pliers. You can use a flathead screwdriver to get the jets out of the unit. Definitely want a Phillips also, and you're going to have a 10 millimeter, both a wrench and a socket. So you can try, but you're not going to be able to get this front one off with your wrench. It looks like that carb is leaking gas now. You'll need something to clean all the jets out with and everything. A regular old wire brush is fine. You can just pull a loom with some needle nose, just pull one of that out of there to use it to clean. You can also do torch tip cleaners. You can cut the ends off. That's what we use here sometimes. And then there's miscellaneous other things like this. Big pair of pliers, a hammer, and a larger flathead screwdriver will make it real easy also. And then you'll want something to drain the old fuel in. You always start with fresh fuel. So we use our nice impact to get everything off, but we're going to go ahead and just take all the bolts out. We've got a couple in the and the front, and they're all 10 millimeters, so super easy. And then the ones in between the unit and the tank, those are going to be a little more difficult because you're going to have to use your as soon as they loosen up, a lot of times it's real easy to just do them by hand the rest of the way. So there's 2 over here, and most of them, some of them only have 1 here. Alright, and then you've got a couple for the Phillips over on the side, plugged into the electric start. And before you do this, obviously you'd want to unplug that electric start. You don't want to leave that on as you're messing with it. And then there's one on the back. On this, we're going to take this one out here. Many people will actually take this other one out and take this whole muffler assembly off. I don't think that's the easiest way. If you do that, you also have to take this one here out, and then the other one on the side of this plastic, pull the plastic cover off. But we're just going to take this one off. And that's just to get that housing free up top. So you can come and look straight down. You have to push it kind of down and pull it towards you to get that to unlock from the fuel tank. So once it does that, it'll come kind of straight up and just kind of hang there, and that back one doesn't really matter at that point. It's out of the way, so it's not bothering anything. And you got a couple ways to take this off. With this knob, you can wait until you get everything else off and you're ready to pull the plastic off and pull it off. Otherwise, you can use what I like to do. I'll show you. I like to use just a regular, there we go, just a regular pair of vice grip pliers. What I'll do is I'll just grab onto it, and then I'll take a hammer and I'll just hit it like so. And it'll pull right off. So easiest way in my opinion. If you use a big, you're going to want a big screwdriver to get the choke plate off. You'll just move it a little bit and get up behind, and then right all the way down in there. Oop, keep hitting that. All the way down in there, you'll want to get to the middle so you can pry it off. So you'll pry, push towards the back, and that thing will just pop right off of there. So, and then to push it back on, it'll just push back in. From there, basically everything's free. So you can pull this. Sometimes the handle here will be in the way. So sometimes you'll actually have to take this top screw down below out in order to make this flex, or take both of them out to get the handle out of the way, if it's in the way when you get to this step. So again, it's just on some models. These engines are used on a lot of different things. So this here just pulls straight out from there. Now on the left hand side here, what gets caught up is the breather tube coming from the crankcase. So it either comes off of the nipple and back here, or it comes off from the plastic in front. Either way, it's got to come off there, or that'll hold you up. That'll hold the whole thing up just from being in your way. So make sure that does get disconnected. And again, you're just pulling it straight forward. Everything should come off real easy. And if you've left this piece on when you're doing that, it just kind of pulls off with it. So that plastic kind of grabs a hold of it as you're pulling the whole unit, gives you a good grip on it. So it looks like the primer line was already disconnected. It's kind of dry rotted. So otherwise you'd have to disconnect that also. If you've got something like this, you don't have a new one, you can just cut it back a little bit where the dry rotted spot is gone. It's usually only the spot right against where the size changes where they actually go bad. The rest of it's perfectly fine. So it's right at the nipple is where it's went bad at. So I'm gonna go ahead and take your choke plate off. It just comes straight out, everything pulls out, and then it comes up and out of there. So the whole unit, that's how your assembly goes. and this can all come out and everything else, but don't mess with it, just leave it the way it is. Now these gaskets up front don't really matter too much because the unit pulls from the air anyway. You're not going to really, you know, get any dust or anything like that when you're snow blowing, hopefully. You can take your fuel line off. Now if you see any cracks or anything like that in the line, now's a good time to replace it if it's bad. So you want to get that clamp off. It's not one to move up off of there. There we go. Once you get that clamp off, you can take the fuel line and you want to twist it. So grab it and twist it, and that'll just free it up against that nipple, and then you can take and get it up underneath. And you'll just drain from there directly into your container, whatever you're using, with your fuel line. Just hook that up, and it doesn't really matter, you know, if you think you got good gas in there, I'd still replace it. You know, you're starting off with a fresh system at this point. Once we have it cleaned, there's really no reason whatsoever to leave any gas in there, even if it's a large amount. So this is what's wrong here. Our governor is actually stuck. The throttle plate is stuck in high, so the governor cannot adjust. So this cannot move whatsoever at this point. So we've got to free that up to get it out of there. So we're going to pull it straight back, and we're going to actually move this as we're going. So we're going to move it, pull it, and move it. It's hard to push, but there it goes. And then we'll pull that governor linkage there straight up, and then our spring straight out. So that's your whole carburetor. At this point, we are going to replace the intake gasket. We're going to put a new one on. If it breaks free from your plastic to the back, we also replace it there also. So this does look like it's broken free. So we're going to put a new gasket on the back, a new one in here. If you don't have one, at least inspect it, make sure it's in good shape. Otherwise, if you have an air leak from here or there, the thing will not run right. We're going to go ahead and break this down and get it cleaned and put back together. Let's see. Some room freed up. Alright, so basically, got the carb down here. What we're going to do is we're going to take it completely apart, clean it. We're going to throw it in the cleaner, an ultrasonic cleaner. If you don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, obviously you can use just a carb cleaner. That's perfectly fine. It's not going to be a big deal whatsoever. The gum out works great. If you don't have gum out, you're really going to need at least something, you know, to... I've seen people use gas and things like that in the field. I mean, it is possible, but really, you want to clean it as well as you can, because this is what's going to control the whole way your unit runs. So if it's not running well, you know, it's because of your carburetor. This thing doesn't look in real good shape. If it's not in real good shape, you run into too many issues, you're going to want to just go ahead and replace it. But take that bowl off, 10 millimeter once again. See what we got in this thing. Oh yeah, it's pretty dirty down in there. So I mean, it's a pretty dirty unit, but we're gonna see if we can't get this thing, you know, back up and going. If you're in a snowstorm or anything like that, you're definitely not gonna want to wait on a carburetor. So we'll take that out. So the needle and seat a lot of times will get stuck down in here. This looks like it has just varnish and stuff all over it. It sure does. I mean, just stuff everywhere. So all that stuff has to come off before we put this thing back together. A lot of times the needle will get stuck down in there, and you'll have to actually take it, and you'll want to twist to free it up before you try to pull it out. Otherwise you'll ruin the float, or you'll ruin the needle, one or the other. You'll bend it. So your main jet sits down in there. It's extremely clogged up also at this point. So we've got that out. To do that, you want a screwdriver that's not too wide. If you get it too wide of a one, it won't fit down in there, and if it's not wide enough, it won't grab that brass and you'll strip it out. So you want to kind of actually push in while you're taking that if you push in while you're removing it, it's gonna actually, you know, unseat as opposed to trying to strip that brass out. That brass is real soft that sits down in there. So if your main jet and your emulsion tube don't come out that easily, you can always open your choke and come down through and push it. So the emulsion tube actually comes all the way up. I'll push it back down in there for you. So it comes all the way up. You can see down in there. Right through the middle at the bottom, that brass piece is the emulsion tube. So if you're having an issue, you can go ahead and push it down this way. If it still won't come out, kind of beat it lightly. If it still won't come out, you can put some carb cleaner down in there, spray everything out real good. Get it good to go. So we're gonna put this thing in the cleaner after we get it all removed. We don't like to put gaskets in there. If you don't have a new gasket, definitely don't clean them with the carb cleaner or anything else. You want those to stay dry if you're gonna try to reuse them. We'll get this pilot jet out. It just, this, you know, has a half moon. It works with a regular screwdriver. Just unscrew it. And then it just kind of pops straight up and out if you work it from the side. Sometimes they're harder than others. This one seems pretty well stuck in there. Sure is. Okay, straight up and out. You want to make sure those O-rings and stuff are good when we put it back together, but we'll throw it through the cleaner first. So with your needle in your seat, you can take that off if you want. It just pushes straight up and then it comes down and out. So then your needle and your spring are right there. So we're going to take all this stuff, we're going to go over and put it in the ultrasonic for about 10 minutes, let it soak real good, and then we'll come back, put it all back together, get this thing finished up. Again, they put these on many of these different models. I mean, Bilt, Yard Machines, MTD, Craftsman, everybody uses them, Cub Cadet. So we got this in the ultrasonic, about 10 minutes. If I can get it to turn on, there it goes. It gets to cleaning real well. We got this thing out of the cleaner. We're going to finish cleaning it up. Now, if you didn't ultrasonically clean it, you can just start at this step. So we're just going to dry all the water and everything off. Get these internal passages cleaned all the way out. Any hole you see in the front or the back, there's a couple here, just jets. Go ahead and flood that down through. And really, carburetor cleaner is about the best thing to use. If you don't have it, you can use fuel and some compressed air. Will also halfway work, at least enough to get you by sometimes. Just need something to flush that out. So down in here there is a screen that gets plugged up sometimes, or allows flow to be restricted. But as long as you're blowing through this, that's going to clean that screen out real well. And we already threw it through the ultrasonic too. I don't think there's any reason whatsoever to open the thing up and clean them. You know, that's just you're pressing into a fitting and everything else. But anyway, this, if you're doing it this way, this will definitely suffice. You want all of the stuff around that seat completely off of there. So you don't want anything left on it. You can use that as far as the wire brush. You can pull some looms from it. Otherwise, you can use something like this just down through. So just something to clean everything off. You don't want anything in there. Anything that's going to be on that seat, that brass seat, is just going to hang up the needle, and then your unit's going to flood into your crankcase, kind of like what we were talking about on the other one. It's a very common issue on these, and you saw how much stuff was in there originally. It was pretty bad, so we don't want that to be the case. If there's anything that wasn't taken off, you can also use your wire brush just to go ahead and do that. Again, the more you get off, the less is going to flake off over time, the less it's going to build up over time. So all this stuff, if it didn't come off in the original thing, you can clean it all off now. The bowl came off pretty well. You also want to clean the bowl in the bottom. I did scrape off a little because it was pretty heavy. I scraped off a little as it was cleaning, but it came off very, very clean. Bottom of the bowl. All right, and again, we're just getting everything off of here. This piece of primer line's still sitting there. We're gonna just remove it. Surprised it took that much to pull it off. Our top pilot jet, what you can do is you can take one piece of your wire brush and just push it through there. You want to be able to see it in the middle, so as you're looking down through, you should be able to actually see it going through that jet and into that middle portion. I'm trying to get another one in there. I had one in and it popped out. Let's see, there we go. So the back side. All right, so as long as you know it's clean, you can see it down through there. Clean that jet all out. It's still got kind of some gunk in there, a little bit of green it looks like. Get that all cleaned out good. If that's not cleaned out, your unit's gonna surge bad. So it happens quite a bit. They come in and that's the only thing clogged is the pilot jet and it's surging real bad. Everything else in the carburetor's perfect. So clean that out. You can go ahead and put it back in. And then you can go ahead and set your screw, and you want it probably anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 pass, and that just limits your governor from coming back too far. It does do something. All right, so we're going to set it there. The rest of this is pretty good, I think. Now we're going to go with the torch tip cleaner, and I'm going to just go back around this brass and kind of clean it up again. Make sure that all that stuff in there is completely gone, because if it's not, this customer will have issues. That's the most important part, is there in the main jet. So make sure they are cleaned out well. Okay. Our needle, you want it on all four corners. You want to make sure that there's nothing on there, I mean, anywhere on this needle really, and you want to make sure that the rubber at the end is perfectly all the way around. So if you're looking at it, you shouldn't see any divots or anything like that anywhere. It should look perfect all the way around, a perfect down to the tip. So if it doesn't, you're going to want to replace it or replace the carburetor or something. This came pretty good. We're going to go ahead and slide it back on, so it just sits in there like such. All right, and that just springs it up, kind of spring loads it. We're going to go ahead and set it down the middle. Install. Looks like we got still a little bit there on this. Okay. And then our jets. Emulsification tube. We're going to go ahead and let's see here. People always make fun of me because I call it emulsification tube, but that is what happens in it. It's just called an emulsion tube. Anyway, you can go ahead and clean this. You do want to make sure down through every one of these holes you should be able to see light. It should be clean. If you can't see light straight through, or you can't see a perfect stream, if you do this, you should be able to see perfect stream out of all those. Didn't get anything on the camera, so that's good. Now, any green slime in here, anything like that, you want that out if there's any kind of gunk. So, but again, should be able to see a perfect circle all the way through in each one of those holes. If you can't see that, you're going to want to clean those. And again, torch tip cleaners down through, something like that, and just go straight through, clean them all out. Some of them get really built up bad there. And then you got the main jet. So this thing is really bad. I mean, that's horrible. It's completely clogged still at this point. It doesn't look like the cleaner did much to it. Go ahead and push all that stuff out. I'm just going down through and cleaning it out. Once you get some through, you can go ahead and see if you can't blow that out. You don't want anything here either. Anything here is going to change the way the fuel flows. It's going to change the whole process in the carburetor. Get everything cleaned off, the front and in the back, because there is kind of a little reservoir that sits back down in there too on the back side if you don't clean it. You want all that area 100% clean. All right. Perfect, perfect. Once they're spotless, you'll go ahead and reinstall the emulsion tube, and if it's sitting down, the longer, skinnier part goes down. and that's if it's upside down. Otherwise, obviously, it goes up. Go ahead and put that back in how it was. And go ahead and screw it back in snug. It doesn't need to be super tight or anything like that. Go ahead and put the bowl back on 180 degrees to wherever your fuel inlet is. You want to make sure that your bowl gasket is seating around here. If it's not up higher than the aluminum in any spot, or you can't feel it as you're pushing down here, it's not going to seal right. If you're on a hill or anything like that, it could leak out. So just go ahead and tighten that up. And we did go ahead and get the intake gasket replaced. We use Honda 16221-ZH8-801. They just seem a little better quality, and I think they're actually cheaper too. And then we went ahead and did a BPR 6ES for the spark plug. So we're going to put this carburetor back on, see how this thing runs. Let's see here. So I'm just going to push it straight on in. And as you're going in, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and grab that governor linkage, and you're going to install it in the carburetor. So first you'll do the spring and just install it in the hole, and then you'll take the governor linkage and install it there. And you want to kind of pull, it needs to be out as it goes down in, and then you can push everything together. Make sure, again, both of these gaskets at the back are good. If they're not, it's not going to run right. So that intake gasket and then the other one should both be good. If they're not, again, you will run into issues. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. All right, so from there you want to verify again that the fuel tank is clear. I don't care if it's good fuel or not. A lot of times it'll hold some down in the bottom. You won't even know it's there. So right now, see, it's showing it's empty. Trying to move it a little bit, I get a drip or two. See what happens if I go ahead and put a little pressure in it. Yeah, still fuel all in there. So if you look through the top, there may be a filter in there, filter basket. If there's not a filter basket, you can look down in there and see, but you got to get all that fuel out of there. So you can do that. You can put like a rag in the top. Some people like to throw a rag in the top of the unit in the fuel tank and blow around with compressed air. Some people like to use suction. You can do it however you'd like, but the inside of the tank, so all I'm doing is I'm using a suction to go ahead and dry the tank. So it sits straight down through there. I'm just pulling the rest of the fuel out of this tank. And once it's dry, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and blow it out real good. Just to make sure it's dry, I'll throw a little bit of R fuel in it, run it through for a second, blow it out again. So just make sure that whatever fuel that you're putting back through this whole system, since it's clean now, is good. Definitely the best way to do it. Grab the, let's see here. Yep, so now as I'm looking down through the tank, there's nothing in it. It's 100% dried out. Blow back through here. Now we know we have a good starting point. We know that everything from this point is going to be clean and fresh, and we're not going to have to worry about that. So that just kind of bends back up over. Put your fuel line back on. I guess I'll leave that off for a second until we get this fuel line and stuff on here so we can see a little better. Fuel line goes back on, and you're going to want the tabs to go to the bottom. If you don't, they will hit on the choke linkage. So tabs to all that stuff go on the bottom. This one was kind of hard to get in. Again, if you've got cracks on the inside of the fuel line or up and down it, you're going to want to replace it at this time. These front gaskets, once again, are pretty pointless. I'm going to go ahead and grab one more here. We put them on there anyway, just for the heck of it, but they don't really do anything. That other one was kind of stuck. Again, this is how it goes on. Just push it down through. Alright, then you can go ahead and put your primer line back on. You can do that before putting all this back together. It makes it a little bit easier. So put the primer line back on, and then from there, remove the whole thing. Just kind of bend it forward, in and around. And once it's up on there, you're just going to guide this. Oops, that's on the wrong side of the primer line. But you're going to want to guide your breather tube through the hole in the back. So right there, guide it through. You'll pull this forward to where your choke is. And then if you're looking straight down through at the top, you'll just line everything up. I just wanted to show a little more detail right here with the choke rod. I always like to make sure it's through. I kind of pull this piece out until that lines up. You got everything else lined up. You got your breather tube started over in the back, so it's about to go through. And then all you have to do is push everything together. So you pull this back and you just kind of push everything together, and it should slide right in. If it doesn't, you know you have an issue of some sort, or you're hanging up on something. So you should be able to see this here. You should be able to see both of those. You should also be able to see your throttle. So from there we can get everything put back together and get this thing ready to go. Let's see here. All right. So again, it's all kind of pushed on there together. We already had the primer hooked up. The top just kind of slides back on and then over and in. And then all you got to do is put everything back together. Just put the two on the front. Okay. And again, make sure everything else is lined up good before you start tightening anything down, but and you got your two here. You got your two on the other side that are just your regular that you've got to get in with your wrench. And you can look straight through and kind of line them up and start them by hand is the best thing to do. I like to screw them almost all the way in by hand before I really use a wrench. Otherwise it just makes it a pain, especially if you start both of them at once. Alright, so the front two. And then the back two. Okay, and then the piece goes. So on the front, with the choke knob, we like to line it up, put it on there. And what I like to do is just take a nice hammer and hit it dead straight on. Pops right back on perfect, everything works good. If you don't use that hammer, you'll just bend it and it's just kind of a mess. But this goes on with the flat part facing up. Just go ahead and kind of same thing there. I'll get that bolt on the back here in a little while. I'm gonna go ahead and put some fresh fuel in this thing, and we'll throw this electric start back on over here also while we're here. You want to fill the tank all the way up no matter what, just as you're storing things. Helps keep the moisture out of it, out of the air, from condensing in your tank if the temperature changes. So is definitely an important thing. Right. Figure out, there it is. Gas cap. And we'll go ahead and throw this front one in real quick while we're here. Yeah, see, that's why I didn't want to do it. I can't see to line it up. So, okay, sounds good. We're on choke. I'm not even going to prime it because it's warm out today. So we got this thing from not starting whatsoever, leaking gas, to back up and running in a short period of time. Hopefully that'll get yours up and going too. Again, these are made on Craftsman, Yard Machines, MTD, Bilt, pretty much everything out there in the MTD brand line. So thanks for watching, like and subscribe.